You've probably heard this a million times. Just make great content. But what if that's not just outdated advice? What if it's actually a trap? For years, we've operated under this belief that if our work is objectively good, it'll get the reach it deserves. But here's the thing. We're ignoring a fundamental truth. Algorithms are completely blind to art. They don't have eyes for your clever script or beautiful cinematography. They only have eyes for one thing, your audience's tiny, almost invisible micro-behaviors. Today, we're going to break out of that content quality trap. We're diving into a new way of thinking, one that's not about subjective quality, but about the cold, hard data of human attention. This is your guide to achieving algorithmic resonance. Okay, let's really dig into this, because this right here, this is the source of so much frustration for creators. I mean, you know the feeling. You spend weeks, maybe even months, perfecting something. The production value is incredible, the writing is sharp, the research is solid. You hit publish, and you expect that sheer quality to get noticed. But then, you're met with digital silence. So what went wrong? Well, you fell for the trap. You assumed the algorithm was a curator, some kind of digital art critic. It's not. It's a data processing machine, and it has exactly one job: measure and predict human behavior. Your masterpiece wasn't ignored because it was bad. It was ignored because it failed to generate the right kind of signals. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll unpack the content quality trap to really understand why our best work can fall flat. Then we'll introduce the behavioral mirror to see how algorithms actually see the world. From there, we'll decode the echo loop. That's the real engine of distribution. We'll get into the psychology of it all with biology over opinion. And finally, we'll make it all practical with a framework for engineering algorithmic resonance. All right, section 1. Let's start with a problem that probably brought you here in the first place: the content quality trap. This is that painful disconnect between the massive effort we put into our work and the results we get back. It's why a brilliantly researched video can get completely buried, while a shaky phone video of a cat goes viral. I know, it feels totally backward, maybe even unfair. But the system isn't broken. We've just been playing by the wrong rules. We thought the game was about making art, when really, it's always been about engineering attention. I want you to really think about this question, because it's the core mindset shift we have to make. We just assume the algorithm is judging our content on its merits. You know, its creativity, its depth. But it's not. It can't. It is completely blind to all of that. What it is watching, with incredible precision, is your audience. It's not analyzing your editing. It's measuring how long a thumb pauses its scroll. It's not critiquing your narrative. It's timing the milliseconds a person's eyes linger on the screen. It's a machine built to watch and quantify the tiniest involuntary twitches of the human nervous system. And that brings us to the central paradox of it all. We've been conditioned to think that good content is the cause, and reach is the effect. But the reality is that reach is just a byproduct of something else entirely, a very specific set of user behaviors. The algorithm doesn't reward quality, it rewards data. Pauses, rewatches, high completion rates, scroll stops. That is the real currency of the digital world. The moment you stop trying to impress a machine with your art and start focusing on engineering these behaviors in your audience, everything changes. So if the algorithm isn't a content critic, then what is it? Let's move on, because this next concept is the key metaphor for this entire explainer. We're going to talk about the behavioral mirror. This is how these platforms actually make sense of the absolute tidal wave of content uploaded every single second. The behavioral mirror. It's a pretty simple but powerful idea. Imagine a mirror that doesn't show your own reflection. Instead, it reflects the combined reactions of everyone who looks at you. That's the algorithm. It has zero opinion about your video, no taste, no bias. It's just an impartial machine that holds up a mirror to your audience's behavior and basically says, here's what people are actually doing. If they stop scrolling, the mirror reflects a stop. If they watch it again, it reflects a rewatch. Your content's fate isn't decided by what you create, but by the reflection it generates in other people. Understanding this demands a huge shift in strategy. For years, we've all been taught the old way of doing things, a topic-first strategy. You know, you pick your keywords, you load up on hashtags, and you hope the algorithm reads those tags and delivers your content to the right people. But that's a static way of thinking. The new model is signal-first. It's all about how people react to your content in real time. It works on the assumption that the algorithm cares way less about what your content is about and way more about how people behave when they see it. This is a dynamic approach, and it's so much more powerful. Let's really break down why that old topic-first strategy just doesn't work anymore. When you only focus on keywords, you're basically handing the algorithm a library card. You're saying, hi, here's my video, it goes in the home renovation section. But in a library where 1 billion new books show up every single day, that card is basically useless. The librarian can't possibly read everything. So instead of trusting the category you assigned yourself, it trusts what the library patrons are doing in real time. It watches which books people are actually grabbing, and even more importantly, which ones they're reading all the way to the end. And this just perfectly illustrates the power of going signal first. So in the old model, you tag your video with #luxuryhomes. But in the new model, the algorithm pretty much ignores that tag at first. What it does pay attention to is this data point that says, hey, a statistically significant number of people who recently searched for mortgages in Miami just stopped scrolling for 2.7 seconds on this video. You see, that behavioral signal is infinitely more valuable than any hashtag you could come up with. The signal proves relevance. The topic is just a label that gets attached later. Okay, so we get it. The algorithm is a behavioral mirror, and we need a signal-first strategy. But what's the actual machine that makes this all work? How does a simple pause in scrolling turn into massive reach? Well, this brings us to the engine room. It's time to decode the echo loop. The behavioral echo loop is the system that turns raw behavior into cold, hard math. It all starts with something called implicit signal capture. That's when a user does a tiny action, like pausing their scroll, and the system logs it. That data is then used to create a predictive propensity score, which is basically a relevance score that predicts how likely other similar users are to do the same thing. If that score is high enough, it triggers feedback loop amplification. The content gets pushed to a wider audience, which then generates even more behavioral signals, feeding back into the system and making the echo louder and louder. You can think of this whole loop as a series of gates, or filters. There are 3 main stages. The very first one, and honestly the most important, is the dwell trigger. That's just capturing the initial scroll stop. If your content makes it past that gate, it moves to the second one, retention, the signal that people are actually sticking around to consume what you've made. And finally, for the stuff that truly resonates, there's the rewatch boost, the ultimate signal of value. So here's the bottom line. Nothing else matters if you can't get that user to stop scrolling. That is the dwell trigger. See, when we're just scrolling through a feed, our brain is in a passive pattern recognition mode. A pattern interrupt, something visually jarring or unexpected, or maybe a sound that doesn't fit, forces the brain to switch gears and engage. It's like a little neurological hiccup that causes a physical pause. To you, it's a creative choice, but to the algorithm, that pause is a priceless data point. It signals high intent, and it's the tiny spark that can ignite the entire echo loop. All right, so once you've earned that pause, you have to hold their attention. That's retention. The algorithm measures this using what's called a decay curve. It's basically a graph that shows what percentage of your audience is still watching at any given second. Think of it like your content's heart monitor. A huge drop-off in the first few seconds, that's a flat line. But a nice high curve, where most people watch all the way to the end, that's a powerful completion signal. It's the main trigger for what's called lookalike distribution. The algorithm essentially says, wow, the kind of person who invested their time to finish this is valuable. Let's go find more people just like them. And now we get to the final gatekeeper, the rewatch boost. Look, a full watch is a great signal, but a rewatch, that is something special. A rewatch tells the algorithm that your content wasn't just valuable, it was dense with value. The user found something so compelling or maybe so complex that they couldn't absorb it all in one go. This single action can effectively double your content's relevance score in an instant. It's like hitting the nitro boost in a racing game, triggering a massive wave of distribution because the algorithm thinks it's found a perfect, high-density match between a piece of content and a user. So we've covered the what and the how. We know the algorithm is a mirror, and we know the echo loop is its engine. But why does this system work so incredibly well? Well, the answer isn't in computer science. It's in human psychology. Let's see how this all connects as we explore biology over opinion. This distinction right here is absolutely critical to understanding the whole system. We all have 2 sets of preferences. First, there are our stated preferences. That's what we say we like. It's the like button we hit on a serious documentary to signal to our friends how smart or virtuous we are. But then there are our revealed preferences. That's what we actually do when we think no one's watching. It's the 15 minutes we accidentally spend watching cat videos. The algorithm knows that stated preferences are noisy data. They're all about social performance. But revealed preferences, that raw, unfiltered data of where we spend our precious seconds of attention, that's the biological truth. And that is what it trusts above everything else. This chart just lays out the hierarchy perfectly. A like is a conscious action. It's a cheap signal, a social head nod. Let's give it a value of, say, 10.
A completion, on the other hand, is a much stronger subconscious signal. You didn't just endorse it, you invested your most valuable asset, your time. That's way more valuable, maybe a 60. But a rewatch, that is the ultimate revealed preference. It's a biological, almost involuntary reaction to something that's deeply compelling. It is the algorithm's gold standard, a perfect 100. The whole system is weighted to favor the signals we can't fake.
So the key insight here is that we are all passive signalers. We are constantly giving off this micro-behavioral data without even thinking about it. You might absolutely love a piece of content, but just forget to hit the like button. Happens all the time, right? But what you will never do is forget to watch something that has truly grabbed your attention. Our attention is simply a more honest, more reliable indicator of value than our conscious actions. And the algorithm knows this. It has built its entire universe around this one simple human truth.
Okay, we've gone through the theory, the mechanics, the psychology. Now let's make it real. How do you go from being a victim of the algorithm to becoming an architect of its signals? Let's shift from just understanding the system to actually commanding it. Here is a clear, actionable framework for engineering algorithmic resonance.
Here it is, your 3-step path to mastery. Step 1, audit. Dive into your analytics and find your viewership decay curves. Where are people leaving? Pinpoint the exact second. Is it a confusing explanation, a boring visual? Find that leak and obsess over fixing it. Step 2, design for dwell time. Those first 3 seconds are everything. Use a pattern interrupt, a sudden sound, a jarring cut, an on-screen question, anything to stop the scroll and earn that initial spark. Step 3, engineer the rewatch. This is the advanced stuff. Create what I call incomplete narratives. Hide a visual detail that people might miss the first time. Use dense on-screen text that's hard to read in one pass. Or even structure your video so the end flows seamlessly back into the beginning, practically begging for a second look.
So how do you know if you're actually getting this right? Here's your new benchmark. Forget the vanity metrics. Mastery isn't about your follower count. Mastery is when you see these massive, out-of-nowhere spikes in reach on individual pieces of content, even if your follower number isn't really moving. That is the ultimate proof that you've cracked the code. It shows the algorithm isn't rewarding your brand. It's rewarding the raw, powerful behavioral signals of that specific piece of content. You're basically creating reach out of thin air, just based on your understanding of the system.
And that really brings us to our final, most important takeaway. For decades, marketing has been about pushing messages out at people. But this new model, it's all about pulling people in. It's about shifting from being a publisher to being a signal engineer. When you understand the invisible forces that shape our digital world, the mirror of behavior, the echo of attention, you can build much smarter, more effective ways to connect. The best marketing doesn't just shout into the void, it understands the machine that connects us all.